Hello, welcome back to my channel. What we're doing is working through the Resilient Learner's Backpack book, and I am reading it for you. And if you are watching this video, I've animated it to try to bring it alive for you so it's not quite so dull. In step 6, we are talking about reducing cognitive load. I'm often asked about how to increase cognitive flexibility. Cognitive flexibility is defined as the ability to switch between tasks, control actions, and adapt flexibly to environments. Increasing flexibility relies on reducing cognitive load, how hard the mind must work to complete tasks. Metaphors abound for the brain, including being a muscle that needs a constant workout, the captain of our ships, and a complex computer. In reality, the brain is none of these metaphors. The brain is a relational, context-generating, collaborative organ that functions best when able to share the cognitive load from resources inside the body, outside in the environment, and between others in relationships. These resources run parallel to our Step 2 discussion about signals of safety and danger coming from inside, outside, and between. I discovered this framework in 2 completely unconnected books that had no reference to one another, and yet polyvagal theory and extended mind science have this inside-outside between framework in common. We're on solid footing here. Your brain needs some help. Use 3 forms of cognition. Utilizing 3 forms of cognition, including embodied, situated, and distributed, is an effective way to reduce cognitive load, increase cognitive flexibility, and strengthen resilience. The book, The Extended Mind, The Power of Thinking Outside the Brain, written by Annie Murphy Paul, is one of the most forward-thinking books to come onto the education scene. Filled with over 250 research citations, the author provides tangible strategies for lightening cognitive load by using the body, the environment, and relationships with others. Examples of embodied cognition are learning through movement, gesturing, and honing one's interoceptive awareness, the ability to tap into how we're feeling from the inside out. Situated cognition extends learning into the environment where it can be manipulated and supported by tangible resources. Distributed cognition extends learning to those around us. We can share the learning load by working in collaborative groups. In this Venn diagram, an overview of the 3 forms of cognition are presented as an integrative whole. When all forms are used, learning becomes easier and sticks better. Additional lists of specific strategies follow. While reading the list, check in with your daily routine to see how many of these strategies you use for yourself and your students. Embodied cognition. Cognitive load is reduced when the body is involved in learning through movement, gesturing, and monitoring signs of stress using interoceptive awareness. An example of embodied cognition is bringing awareness to nervous system states by listening within and recognizing states to reduce stress and lighten the cognitive load. Stress impacts learning and reduces cognitive energy available for executive functioning, memory recall, and efficient learning. Examples of embodied cognition. Inside. 1. Developing interoceptive awareness. 2. Utilizing cognitive reappraisal to view a stressful activity such as public speaking by using words like excited rather than nervous, and telling learners that the increased feelings of alertness is preparing them to do well on their task or test. 3. Including movement with learning to create more pathways for learning to help increase the odds of it sticking. 4. Understanding that stillness pays a high cognitive load for learners. Research supports time and again that movement is essential for learning. 5. Changing feelings, thoughts, and perceptions through embodied self-regulation, which refers to the scientifically proven fact that moving the body changes feelings, thoughts, and perceptions. Included in embodied self-regulation is fidgeting and doodling. 6. Making recess a mainstay for all learning programs. Ability to concentrate declines with too much seat time. 7. Encouraging learners to use facilitated comprehension, which includes using the body to act out a story or understand key concepts. 8. Creating sessions using the 4 types of movement. Congruent movements. Move in a way that aligns with thinking. Novel movements. Move in new ways to explore abstract thought. Self-referential movements. Put oneself in the center of learning. Metaphorical movements. Move in ways that bring to life metaphors. 9. Teaching gesturing while talking and completing presentations. Expand vocabulary through gesturing Use charts, graphs, models, or maps to encourage learners to gesture using these visual artifacts as they are teaching or explaining during a presentation. Gesturing is a sensory motor enrichment strategy. 10. Increasing gesturing during online learning. Make sure others can see one another's hands and gesture often to increase retention. 11. Strengthening the social engagement system by participating in activities and games to act out nervous system states and observe people's expressions during different states. 12. Understanding the ANS befriending process to increase awareness of states during learning tasks and activities. 13. Monitoring states during learning episodes using monitoring tools and activities. Situated cognition. Examples of situated cognition include creating organized learning spaces, providing flexible seating options, encouraging students to actively participate in the design of the classroom environment, and allowing students to personalize their individual learning spaces. 1. Understanding the role of color and its effect on learning. Wall color, soft greens, blues, or teals for calmness. Wearing color for trust building, eye color. Memory-enhancing colors. Experiment with different colors such as yellow paper with red ink, color rather than black and white. 2. Extending learning from the mind into the environment where it can be manipulated, cognitive offloading. Math manipulatives, whiteboards, smartboards, cutting and pasting, grouping, using graphic organizers. 3. Utilizing multiple learning tools. Book flags, note cards, highlighters, personal whiteboards, stickers, visual organizers, music, movement, tactile activities. 4. Providing sensory supports, headphones, privacy shields, regulating tools, colored overlays. 5. Designing variable seating opportunities, standing, sitting at desk, sitting on cushion, sitting on fitness ball, moving in rocking chair. Ensure proper seating at desk with feet firmly on the floor. This includes sit balls. Including biophilic design in the learning environment by bringing nature into learning spaces, attentive restorative therapy, real or artificial plants, nature posters, natural lighting, short nature videos for breaks, easy care critters, green spaces. 7. Creating multiple learning spaces for learning, quiet, sensory, movement, cooperative, academic areas. Personalizing learning spaces, choice over where to sit, choice over how to organize work area, choice over how to decorate work area. Distributed cognition. The third type of cognition is distributed cognition. Cognition can be shared between students. Distributed cognition includes thinking with groups, working collaboratively, socially shared experiences, cooperative learning, and moving together through synchronized activities to increase bonding and trust. Examples of distributed cognition. Between. 1. Including collaborative and cooperative learning opportunities. 2. Breaking a topic into parts with groups, teaching each of the parts to one another. 3. Developing movement rituals where everyone moves together while looking at one another, not looking at a video. 4. Inviting teams of learners to teach a topic, activity, or movement routine to the group. 5. Increasing cues of identity and belonging through rituals, personalized spaces, agreeing on group rules, socially shared activities, and working together on shared goals. 6. Providing workspaces to accommodate socially distributed cognitive tasks, collaborative spaces where learners can be noisy, materials within those spaces that can be shared for cognitive offloading. 7. Supporting more introverted learners by individually writing questions, comments, or suggestions for the group prior to presenting to one another. This gives all learners time to think and process the task without the added cognitive load of being put on the spot. 8. Increasing opportunities for learners to creatively work together on projects to develop instructional videos so they can teach what is to be learned to other learners. 9. Encourage learners to teach one another with stories. Comprehension increases 50% with stories rather than expository text. Move, model, reenact, or write a story to better understand expository text. These 3 forms of cognition help lighten cognitive load and increase cognitive flexibility by utilizing interactive, regulating resources. The brain becomes the best version of itself by connecting with the body through the environment. We must view learning as an integrated weaving of the body, mind, and environment. Beyond growth or fixed mindsets. The popular mindset paradigm describes mindsets as either growth or fixed. I introduced the concept of an evolving mindset, a place of evolution or devolution, depending on students' ANS states, cognitive stories, and access to a metaphorical backpack of regulating resources found in the Learning Hub. In order to create more optimistic futures and growth mindsets, students in sympathetic or dorsal vagal states must unpack their cognitive stories about their abilities to learn. They need to be shown how to access regulating resources and taught skills needed to be successful. When students have access to the Learning Hub resources and the CLA process, their mindsets evolve into a growth mindset. They move forward on their learning paths. When students don't have access to regulating resources and a process for understanding their cognitive stories, they are unable to overcome obstacles encountered along the way, believing the stories generated from a sympathetic or dorsal vagal state. This may cause a devolving mindset, moving further away from a growth mindset. These learners may become failure avoiding or failure accepting and exhibit a fixed mindset. Learners need to feel safe enough to ask questions, try new activities, and view challenges as part of the learning process. This requires the ability to recognize and manage feelings of danger and the protective nervous system response that usually accompanies those feelings. By increasing access to ventral resources, the nervous system becomes more flexible and elastic as it moves into dysregulation and returns to regulation. Signals of danger, if untended during the learning process, reduce cognitive functioning. Access to resources in the Learning Hub create the foundation for nervous system flexibility, which in turn supports efficient cognitive functioning and cognitive flexibility. When the body and mind come together within a congenial environment that supports learning and regulation, mindsets evolve from fixed to growth. Increasing nervous system and cognitive flexibility is possible for all students when the learning environment is optimized using embodied, situated, and distributed cognition. It's also important to acknowledge that our words have the power to increase nervous system flexibility. Encourage students to use words that are empowering, along with strong body language, like the hands-on hips Wonder Woman pose. As Marie Forleo indicates by the title of her New York Times bestselling book, Everything is Figure-Outable, we can use this empowering phrase along with empowering words with our students and neatly tuck them into their resilience-building metaphorical backpacks to travel with them wherever they go in this life. For learners who sign, are non-speaking, or prefer to use signs, teach the American Sign Language signs for each state. These are taught in Step 6 Backpack Essentials. Never underestimate the depth of feelings for learners with language-based challenges. By teaching signs, learners who have a difficult time verbalizing emotions may become more adept at recognizing their ANS states and sharing their observations with others. Step 6 Befriending Benefits. When we view the mind as extending beyond the top 3 inches of our heads, we move through perceived limitations by including the body, the environment, and others in the learning process. By teaching learners how to extend their minds, we're showing them ways to learn that reduces cognitive load and makes learning easier and more enjoyable. Viewing the mindset paradigm through a polyvagal lens adds flow and fluidity to the black and white duality of fixed and growth mindsets, creating the space for evolving mindsets. Through embodied, situated, and distributed cognition, cognitive load can be lightened, thereby increasing cognitive flexibility. Flexibility in the mind-body system makes it possible to be more adaptable and resilient in an ever-changing world. These valuable tools will stay with you and your students for a lifetime. Step 6 Backpack Essentials. Reduce cognitive load. The one thing. It's very empowering for teachers and parents to embrace their jobs as creators of congenial situations outside the brain that help children learn. That's a really hopeful and optimistic way to think about what we do. Annie Murphy Paul, author of The Extended Mind, Thinking Outside the Brain. Step 6 Objectives. Differentiate between embodied, situated, and distributed forms of cognition. Understand how to map mindsets and implement activities using each of the 3 types of cognition. So this first tool is basically putting those 3 types of cognition on paper. So it's situated cognition, we're putting it on paper, and you're going to actually go through and say, in my day, in my lesson plans, how much embodied cognition do I use, how much situated, and how much distributed cognition do I use? So it just makes it very purposeful that you're looking at how you're teaching students and the way you're teaching students. Is it a way that helps lighten cognitive load for them? And when we lighten cognitive load, we reduce stress, and the nervous system can remain in ventral vagal so much easier. We can stay regulated. So the mindset teaching tool is something that I think is really interesting. We have growth mindset and fixed mindset, but as I was writing book 1 and working on book 2, I'm thinking there's like an evolving mindset. Like students can evolve toward growth if they have the regulating resources, or they can devolve away from growth to a fixed mindset if they don't have the regulating resources. So I felt like it was important to explicitly teach this mindset idea and this mindset meter and show them how they can evolve their mindset more easily if they have their regulating resources available for them. The mindset meter mapping activity is where we take our 3 forms of cognition and the students actually figure out what things do they do that help them learn better. How can they use their body? How can they use the environment? And how can they share with other people? I think long term, if we can teach students how to learn better, how to study better, and how to remember what they're learning, that's really key to what we do in the education profession. So I think using this tool, well, it's an activity. We have the other tool that I just talked about, but this is actually the student activity. I think can be very helpful for our students in teaching them how to reduce their cognitive load and stay more inventful while they're learning. The ANS science and gesturing tool, so much science coming out about gesturing and how important gesturing is to remembering and learning. So I came up with, we can do some sign language, we can use some signs for ventral, for sympathetic, and for dorsal vagal for some of our students who are non-speaking. And so you have a script over there to the left here, and you can just basically read the script. But what I really want you to be thinking about is observing your students, which students move their hands, which students make meaningful gestures when they're learning or when they're teaching something to the group, because those are the students who are learning easier and have a lighter cognitive load than the students who don't use their hands and who don't gesture. So include that in your lessons. OTs, I feel like that's a really important skill that you can start adding to your students' repertoire, is teaching them how to gesture. Quadrant jumps activity is one of the activities I've put in here as an example of using embodied cognition. So you can put words in the boxes, you can put a painter's tape on the floor in a quadrant, you can put this quadrant on the desk, you can put it on a wall, you can put it up on a whiteboard for your whole class, and they can look at it on the board and jump into the quadrants and say their words. Embodied cognition. An idea around situated cognition is to use this particular activity where you ask the students what are they needing. So if they're in a particular state in ventral vagal, do they need anything? If they're in sympathetic, what are they needing? What are the regulating resources? Or if they're in dorsal vagal, this is an example of situated cognition, taking whatever's in our minds, whatever we're thinking about our nervous system states, and putting it out in front of us so we can manipulate it, we can think about it, we can write, we can use a situated cognition. And then distributed cognition is when we do something with the whole group. So if we do any of the activities that we've talked about up to now, we're doing it with the whole group, we're distributing that learning amongst everybody. So everybody's putting in their percentage to help all of us learn better. This is the essence of collaboration. Thank you for listening or watching this video. I hope you found it helpful. If you did enjoy the video, it really helps if you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thanks for all you do for children. We'll catch you in the next video.